Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Bright Teach Study Survival podcast. This is episode 3, and today we're going to be talking about revising for science, so biology, chemistry, maybe a little bit of physics if you're lucky. But how was your weekend, Will? How are we feeling this week?
It was great. I'm very excited for this episode.
Absolutely.
I teach science.
This is your time to shine.
I'm ready to give some
your time to
tricks,
shine.
tips, and study hacks that stick.
He remembered.
I remembered it.
He remembered.
How are you doing, Blair?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Busy weekend for me. Lots of preparation. I've been posting the reels from the podcast on Instagram, which if you haven't seen yet, go and definitely check those out. But that's been really, really exciting, seeing how people have responded so well to the podcast, and really people are taking great information from it and saying that stuff's been really informative. So it's always nice to hear some positive reinforcement.
It seems to be helping people.
Absolutely.
That's the goal.
Absolutely. I've had DMs on our Instagram of people saying, oh, this is so helpful. And even people who aren't doing their GCSEs anymore saying, God, I wish I knew this when I was doing my GCSEs. So yeah, we're making some lovely progress.
That's why we do it.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So what are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be talking about revising for science and really getting the techniques in your head, understanding the differences between kind of memorization and understanding, and really how to capitalize on making sure you're getting the top marks you can possibly get in your science GCSEs.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. So you talked there about like understanding versus memorization.
Yeah.
So is that like, I don't know, memorization, the sort of recall? Okay, I can give a definition. I've literally remembered word for word.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the definition is, what Newton's first law is.
Yeah.
And then actually understanding it is having a more in-depth sort of, the why, the how, you know how to apply it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So the difference between understanding and just memorizing is there's two completely different fish tanks.
Great, let's go for
two
fish.
different fish tanks.
Yeah.
And the difference is really, really key to understanding, because one of the things that a lot of people do, and I know that I did in my GCSEs, was I learned the specification. Okay. I learned the facts, the knowledge. I had my flashcards sorted with all the key terms. I went into my GCSE mock, let's say chemistry. I went into my chemistry GCSE mock thinking I was a baller. I knew every single thing. I was going to come out with 100%. When I walked home that evening, my mum was going to throw me a celebration party of, oh my God, my kid is a genius. But actually, that's not what happened.
Oh no.
Because you'll never guess what grade I got.
What happened, Blair?
I got a 2.
Oh.
I got a 2. I got a 2 in my chemistry mock, and my mum did not throw me a celebration party, which is fair enough. But basically what had happened for me in this exam was, even though I had all the key terms, definitions, whatever, I didn't understand how to apply it to the questions. So for example, in biology, let's say, instead of just knowing, okay, what is the definition of mitosis or whatever, when the question was asking me to describe a process, I was up a creek without a paddle. I was fighting for my life. I was like, okay, I'm just going to put all the definitions I can remember about this topic in the answer box and just hope for the best.
Right.
So the difference between kind of memorizing these key facts and really understanding is being able to apply them to the question topic when it's saying apply or discuss the process, or those kind of key terms makes such a difference to the question you're actually answering.
Wow. It was one of our key principles at Bright Teachers. Knowledge is not enough. Yeah. So it's like you can know these things, but if you don't know how to apply them, it's kind of like, what's the point even?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You've got to apply it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we're talking about science mainly.
Yeah.
How do we go from just knowing to being able to apply things in science?
Fantastic question. So it kind of depends on the subject that you're studying for. So for example, revising for biology, chemistry, and physics are completely different in my head. If you think of a Venn diagram, right, they've all got an overlapping section in the middle in terms of, you can do past paper questions. That would be in the middle section. Oh, I've just punched the mic. That would be in the middle section. But then in the separate ones, for example, for biology, it's got more key terms and definitions that you would need to know versus physics or chemistry.
Yes.
So maybe that's a technique that you want to use more in biology. Whereas for physics, you might want to practice actually applying the formula that you've been taught. I think they have the formula now in the exams, don't they? Yeah. They didn't when I was doing my GCSEs. Outrageous. But so practicing using the kind of formula and showing you're working, making sure you're getting all of those marks checked in. And that's when it comes really down to making sure you're using the past paper mark schemes. So you can see exactly what these examiners are looking for and where you're going to get the marks that you're looking for.
It's really good. And even checking how many marks a question is.
Yeah.
So, if you're asked a question about what are the advantages of using wind power, for example, and you look and you see, okay, if it's a 1 mark question, you can probably just do one little point.
One little sentence.
I don't know, it's a form of renewable energy. But if it's like 3 marks, there's going to need to be 3 specific points that are showing your knowledge, and you've got to have a good understanding of how they mark these questions.
Yeah.
Because you can write correct things and you might not get the marks for them.
Yeah.
Because it's not specifically what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So for example, again, with the wind energy, it's like, okay, so it's renewable. And then, okay, so it doesn't emit greenhouse gases, which contribute to global warming. Yeah. So then there's 3 points there that they've known now they know you've got a good understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you're going to get those marks.
That's how you're going to get those marks. And talking kind of back to what we were speaking about, I'm not sure if it was last week on the podcast.
On the podcast.
I love the podcast. On the podcast or the week before. But we were kind of explaining the significance of using past paper questions and looking at the mark schemes, but also the examiner reports as well. So just to bring that point back, being able to go through the mark schemes and examiner reports is really going to highlight to you exactly what we were just saying, what the examiners are looking for, but also the common mistakes that other students are making in that exam past paper across the other year groups. So for example, if you were able to look at a physics examiner report and it said, well, kids were really good at using the formula, however, a lot of them forgot to show their working, that's a key sign for you to make sure you are showing, you'll never guess what, you're working. So making sure we're using all the tools that are available to us is really, really, really helpful.
That's great. So if we were to have certain steps of how to revise for science, they might look slightly different for each, but let's go over a good step by step.
Lovely.
So we might start off with those flashcards.
Yep. Yeah. So for example, let's take biology because that's my favourite subject to use in an example. We should get a little tally of every time I say biology in a podcast.
We should do that.
But so let's talk how to revise biology. So flashcards, fantastic for definitions, keywords, and making sure you're really understanding those terms which are going to be used in an exam.
And there's a lot of those in biology, aren't there? Because there's some of those, I know there's some of those in physics, like Newton's laws, and so a little bit of history, you've got to know, some definitions you've got to know. But in biology, there's loads of those, right? Flashcards galore.
Flashcards galore. But we can also use those flashcards and go back to a more visual technique if we'd like. So if we've got the definition on the back, the key term on the front, and those terms have kind of come from a diagram, what we can do is clear a space on our floor and put the flashcards in the right place on the floor so we can visualize this diagram as well. And then if there's any of the words in that diagram you're not quite sure of, you can flip them over.
Nice.
And then see the definition.
Oh, I like that.
Or if we have the stack in our hand and we're trying to remember where each thing goes in a diagram, it's a kinesthetic technique as well as a visual revision technique of, okay, where does this flashcard go in this diagram or this cycle or whatever. And we can physically put it in the right place. And that might just make things make a little bit more sense in our brains. So flashcards, they're not just flippy pieces of paper. They've got so many uses. Something else we want to do is past paper questions, as we said, to make sure you're really getting the knowledge down, the understanding. There's some other techniques as well. Something that people there's a controversial opinion on, but sometimes people use ChatGPT to, if they've got a concept that they really don't understand and they've watched a YouTube video and checked in the textbook, if there's something you're still not understanding, you can chuck it in there and say, Kate, can you just explain to me exactly what this means? It will give you some kind of definition or explanation. And then you can ask it more specific questions as well, which can be quite helpful if you've got something which you're really just not getting your head around. That can be useful. There's also in the Google app, there's now a homework feature where you can scan a question and it will give you, like, for example, if you're doing maths, you can scan a formula and it will give you the step-by-step, how they've done it, how they've worked it out. So that can be quite useful as well to get your head around maybe some of those slightly more tricky topics. There's also CGP books for textbooks where they've got kind of all the information you can need on a topic on one page, which is just beautiful.
That's good.
But yeah, there's a whole range of different techniques. That would be my suggestion for biology. But as a chemistry and physics person, I'm going to flip the question around and let you take it for a spin.
Yeah, great. So yeah, those knowledge recall revision techniques are fantastic to start off with. So you know your definitions, you know your concepts, and then like we've talked about, applying them is entirely different. So yeah, those past papers are so important. Understanding how they mark them. I mean, that's what I did. I love hearing all of these different ways of revising because I think I would have done so much better if I knew all of these things.
Definitely.
I remember I once revised for a chemistry exam. And I knew everything, Blair.
Everything.
I knew everything.
It was a ball of
I'd done all the revision, but I didn't know how to apply it. My chemistry teacher walked right up to me in class, did this with the paper in front of me, and slapped it down in front of my desk. I went, "You didn't revise for this at all, did you?"
That's
I was
outrageous.
I did all of this revision. I had my book where I said, look at this. It's sort of like 6 pages of revision. I didn't know how to apply the knowledge. I didn't know how to apply it. So past papers are really important.
I think that is the biggest problem that most people struggle with when it comes to science GCSEs. It's really this application section where it's like, because every other subject, for example, you know, geography, history, a lot of it is you get the knowledge and you just write it out and explain it. But when it comes to science, sometimes I used to find that I would look at a question and not even really understand what they were asking. It's like I knew all the knowledge. Like if you'd ask me if you give me a multiple choice question or like multiple choice test, 100% easy. I knew the stuff. When I saw a question and it was like, oh, here's a scenario. Now apply your knowledge. I'm thinking, what knowledge are we talking about? I've got so much knowledge. I'm like Santa Claus with a sack of knowledge right now. But I have no idea what I'm supposed to be talking about in this question.
It's almost like this is French. We're meant to be talking about science. We'll talk about French for a second.
Absolutely.
I once wrote down everything I needed to say in a speaking exam. I had to memorize it. I didn't know what any of the words meant, Blair. I'd written them down. I was like, I'm just going to memorize the words. I don't need to know what they mean. I'll just memorize them. And I couldn't memorize them because I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what any of these individual things, like the application of them were, how to use them in different contexts. There was like such a base level understanding. When we've got a deeper understanding of how these things work, we can actually apply them. So we need to have a deep, rather than a surface level understanding of just, I guess, wind power, it's renewable. It's like, okay, why is it renewable? Why does it work? How does it work? How does the wind turn into electrical energy? You know, we need to have an in-depth understanding of these things.
Definitely. I think just to add a quick little personal anecdote to the French thing, which is completely unrelated, I made my French oral rhyme. That was the way that I remembered mine. So I had no idea what I was saying, but I can still remember it to this day. It was like, bonjour, je m'appelle Blair, j'habite à working dans le sud de l'Angleterre. My whole thing rhymed. That was the way I got through my French oral. The thing is, when she turned around and was like, here's my questions for you now in French, I sat there and was like, okay, I didn't prepare a rhyming
Your questions don't rhyme.
I've got no idea what's going on.
Okay, great. But we can learn definitions and things, we can make them right.
Mnemonics, little songs. I can still do the periodic table because did you ever listen to that song on YouTube?
No.
Do you never heard that song? I can recite the entire periodic table because there's a YouTube video out there somewhere where they turned it into a song.
That's how I remembered, like going way back, that's how I remembered the days of the week.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So, primary school. I don't know if I'm going to sing it, but there was a primary school assembly song.
If this video gets How many likes? I want it to be achievable, so you have to sing.
It's on YouTube?
If this video gets 5 likes, I know it'll get more, but
if this video gets 1 view, I'll sing.
If this video gets 1 view, 1 like, 1 share, and 1 repost, we'll sing the Days of the Week song next episode. But yeah, no, songs, mnemonics, fantastic way to get information in your head.
A better example is That's How I Know the Planets.
Yes.
There's a primary school song, but it did say that the sun was the biggest star in my one.
Oh.
Yeah, it went Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Spinning around the sun, the biggest star. It's not the biggest star.
Oh, fair enough.
It's not the biggest star. In the solar system, yeah, okay, but that solar system means around the sun, a star.
Yeah.
Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus too. Don't forget Neptune, all of you. Pluto's not a planet. It was, but it's not anymore.
Yeah, see, I've got Pluto in my song, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's not. Should we get into that? Probably not.
Probably not. Here's the best revision technique we have for you.
Oh, here we go.
Pluto is not a planet. Anyway.
You're now past your GCSEs.
You're going to get an A star, 9s all around the board. Remember that one fact, you'll be fine.
Comment on this video to achieve your first GCSE.
Woo! Right, anyway, we're digressing. We're losing the plot.
What online resources are good to use?
Okay, online resources. So there's a whole range. I would say there's literally so many resources out there. I'd say places that have past paper questions, like for example us, we've got loads.
Yeah.
And separated into topic question as well makes it a lot easier.
So if you were struggling with eukaryotes and prokaryotes in biology, on Brightteach we have all of the GCSE eukaryotes and prokaryotes questions and mark schemes, and we've even got easy ones, some medium ones, more difficult ones. So you can work your way up.
That's really helpful. Yeah. And you can see your progress over time as well, I think. And something that I was explained in school, something I was taught in school was if you think about your knowledge and your learning from your GCSEs as a pyramid, and you've got the blocks, at the bottom, which are wider, and then you get higher and higher up to the top. If your bottom blocks are wiggly instead of solid and structurally sound, your whole pyramid is going to be squiff. And we don't want squiff pyramids. No. We're not looking to build the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
We're not.
If your foundation blocks are solid and structurally stable and you understand exactly what's going on, going back to your French oral where it was like, oh, well, I didn't actually know what the words mean. Your blocks were wiggly. If you've got some lovely solid straight blocks, then the information you build on top of those is also going to be structurally sound.
That's so good.
I know.
Don't have wiggly bottom blocks.
No wiggly blocks.
No.
Zero wiggly blocks. But so yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about your revision and your learning journey. Yeah. You need to have this foundation knowledge of what are the definitions, what am I actually talking about, and then the application blocks, just pop them on top.
That's great. Okay, what are some common science revision struggles?
Okay, so main struggles I would say are the application thing. People get confused there. I would also say when people are answering questions, typically the command word makes a massive difference, and people don't always look at that. They kind of read the question, especially when you're panicking in an exam and you're like, oh my God, I've got 5 minutes to answer this question. Do you know what I mean? If you slow down, maybe whip out a highlighter. If you've got some pastel highlighters, it's time to whip out the 10 pack. You can highlight the command word in one color, mark scheme in the other color, and then it's like, right, I know how many points I need to make and what I need to make my points on.
Give us an example of those command words.
So you've got stuff like discuss, explain, apply, define.
Yes.
Those are 4 different questions.
So define is like, okay, that's when you're, what are they called? Flashcards.
Yeah.
Okay, so define is when your flashcards become important. Then you're literally recalling some knowledge.
Yeah.
And then if it's sort of, what was another example that you use? Explain. Okay, now you're going to want to do some more application. You're going to want to show that you know how it works.
Yeah.
Great. Discuss. That's going to be a long question.
Yeah.
You might want to show some alternative viewpoints. That might be a bit more subjective. Yeah. So that's not knowledge recall. Now you're talking about advantages and disadvantages, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially stuff with like graphs as well. You might have draw. And that's something as well where quite a few people tend to lose marks. It's like if you get told, draw a bar chart to explain the distribution of plants in whatever. If you aren't labeling your axes, or you're not putting units and your labels on your axes, or whatever, those kind of things make a massive difference to just you losing a couple of marks here and there as well. So attention to detail on that front. Just, we don't need to, it's like, what is it? Keep your pennies and they turn into pounds, whatever the exact saying is. If you keep and look after those little 1 marks that you might lose otherwise, they could total 10 marks by the end of your test, which could be the difference of a grade boundary.
That's very true, Blair. So, should we just revise, burn out?
No.
No?
Straight answer, no. Don't do that.
Because I think people will think we're going to encourage them to just work and then revise. And then you're going to get up at 4 a.m. and then you're going to do more past paper questions. And then you're going to go to school.
1 o'clock in the afternoon.
And then on your way home,
blink.
Make sure you got that blinking time. And then you're going to eat food whilst you're revising.
Yep.
And then you're going to get home.
Yep.
On your way home, you're going to revise.
Yeah.
When you get home, you're going to revise.
Yeah.
And then when you sleep,
you're going to revise in your sleep.
Revise.
If you're not revising when you're dreaming, you're going to fail your GCSE.
Why even try?
Yeah.
Guys.
Boo. Hiss.
Guys, take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
You don't have to revise all the time.
No.
We're going to... Tell us about that, Blair.
So, my top study tip is probably making sure you have a lovely balanced revision timetable. Wow.
Okay.
And what that really means is you don't need to work all the time. You don't need to work and work and work. Because there's quite a few people. I remember doing my revision for my GCSEs and turning around and this kid was like, oh, I revised for 8 hours on Saturday. I'm thinking, girl, did you go outside? Did you go outside? Did you see the sun? And I think having this balance where it's like, maybe you do an hour of revision and then go for a walk around the block, getting your fresh air in, some exercise, releasing those endorphins that are going to make you feel like revising this much is actually manageable and you have some sense of sanity left at the end.
Yeah.
Key. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. And signs of burnout, I don't think necessarily that well spoken about. I don't think people necessarily really realize when they're burnt out. But being burnt out can present itself like overeating or undereating, not being able to sleep, not having the kind of focus, not being that desired to actually do stuff. But by creating this balanced timetable where it's like, I'm going to do 4 hours of revision today, full stop, or whatever time you want to do. It depends how early or late you've started revising in terms of how much you need to
and who you are. Some people can revise more, some can revise less.
Exactly. And it's whether you do an hour revision or if you do 20-minute Pomodoro bursts. It's completely different for everybody. And it's really important to find the techniques that work well for you. But the important thing is making sure you are taking some time off. So if you are doing your 4 hours of revision in the morning and then you've scheduled your friends, you're going to go see your friends, go to the cinema at 5 o'clock. Okay, I need to do 4 hours of revision before 5 p.m. Am I going to wake up at 11 and start my revision at 12 and then cram in 4 hours and not take a break and then go to the cinema and stare at another screen and my eyes will go square in the process? Or are you going to wake up at 9:30, do an hour, 10:30, go for a little walk? Then it feels much more manageable and it doesn't feel like you're just sat at your desk all day.
Yeah, your brain needs time to soak in the knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, if you're just revising, it's like having a completely wet sponge and pouring more water on it.
Absolutely.
It's like, you're not doing any good here.
Nothing is going on.
You've got to give it a bit of time to soak in.
Yeah.
And then you can get a bit more.
Yeah.
And
revision. I think something else which is really, really helpful, which people don't necessarily do, is when I was revising for my GCSE mocks, I revised in my bed quite a lot. Like I would sit on my bed with my laptop or my flashcards just because it was more comfortable.
Yeah.
But it meant that if I didn't see my friends in the afternoon, for example, if I was revising more on that particular day, I felt like I didn't move. I'd sit on my bed, do my revision, finish my revision, go sleep in my bed, wake up in my bed, do more revision in my bed. So moving away from your workspace or desk area is really important. And that doesn't necessarily mean go and work 10 million miles down the road in a random coffee shop. It means, sometimes if it's sunny, go work in the garden, take your flashcards outside, get some fresh air, bit of a tan, love it, with sun cream on.
Yeah.
Lovely. Or, revise downstairs at your kitchen table or go to your local library or whatever. Being able to move where you're revising and having that change of scenery also makes it feel less repetitive and like all you're doing is sat there revision.
And if you don't have the luxury to be able to go to a different part of your house, maybe just change the lighting.
Exactly.
Maybe you've got your lighting for your revising, and then you switch up your lighting for your rest time.
Yeah.
And then your brain can switch off from one mode and go into the next mode a bit easier.
Definitely.
We can do things to help our brain get into work mode and get into rest mode.
That's a really good point you've raised there, actually. Something which I do, which I completely forgotten about, is I have a candle. It varies when I run out of the candle, but whenever I'm revising, I light my candle, and it's like a visual and like smell cue of I'm revising now. My brain is in revision mode.
Oh, brilliant.
And then when I'm on a break, I blow it out because you shouldn't leave candles on fire in your room and then leave.
Top tip.
Clearly. So I'll blow it out and then remove myself. If I come back in to get something, it doesn't smell like revision anymore. So it's like, oh, okay, we're in rest mode now.
Wow.
That is a visual cue, a smelling cue, and just it kind of cues with me it's revision time or not revision time. And you can tie that in with your lighting, or you can tie that in with some music. I would recommend you're not listening to grime or rap or drum and bass when you're revising.
Yeah. Works for some people somehow.
Works for some people.
But not having the words there helps, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, when I've been really trying to cram my revision before, which you shouldn't do, but it happens at points.
Happens sometimes.
I used to listen to the star up sound when you hit that power up in Mario Kart, and it's like I listened to that because I was like, I need to write really, really quickly. I need to do this task. Absolutely. Thing is, it's like because of my ADHD, it's like a trap. It's like a Venus flytrap for ADHD people. When you have to cram something, it like tickles your brain enough that it's like it's really good. But normally, if you're revising at a normal pace and doing things well-timed and prepared, maybe some lo-fi beats or some gentle music would be really, really helpful in terms of just easing your way through, keeping yourself on track.
That's good.
And, if you use the same playlist, I have a playlist that I use on my study lives, which is the same songs in the same order. It's been like that for 5 years.
Wow.
And so when I click on that playlist, when I'm doing my revision for uni, I know the first 50 songs. I can tell you what song's coming next. And it means that instead of my brain thinking, ooh, what song's next? Or, oh, I love this song. It's like, I've heard this so many times. So it's just like white noise in the background that just keeps me gently focused.
That's great. A little sort of sensory thing to keep your brain sort of like tickled almost.
Absolutely. Tickle my brain.
Okay, great. So I think we've gone through some different ways of revising for science.
Yeah.
A pretty good order, why it's important.
Yeah.
Balancing well-being as well.
Yeah.
Some
important.
resources.
Yeah.
My goodness gracious me. Do let us know if you've got any questions about this.
Absolutely. If you have any specific topics that you'd like us to cover as well, if you pop us a message on Instagram, I'm reading them. So I'll see, oh, look. Bob has asked us to talk about revising for modern foreign languages.
Shout out to Bob.
Shout out to Bob, who does not exist. But yeah, you can message us with any questions that you have. If you've got any little stories you want us to include in this, let us know and we'll just sprinkle them in.
Little sprinkle.
Sprinkle. Right. Shall we call it a day there? If you would like to listen to our podcast next week, which you definitely should because it's so informative and amazing, and you'll get to hear and see, depending on what platform you are currently listening to, you'll get to hear or see our lovely voices/faces same time next week. So definitely make sure your post notifications are on, which I worked out where it is on Spotify this week. On YouTube, it will be down here. On TikTok, it will be up here. On Instagram, you have to go to our profile. On Spotify, it depends if it's on full screen or if you're watching the video, it's somewhere down here. And if you're listening, you're going to have to turn your phone on so you can fight for yourself there. But we will be back same time next week talking about a super cool topic, which is making sure we're not getting burnt out, how to manage all of these strategies. We're basically going to be going into a bit more detail about what we're speaking about at the end of this episode. So really important stuff coming in, especially with if you've got your mocks back and you're now trying to really recover from maybe a grade that you weren't as happy with, or if you're just stepping up the ammo, if you're stepping up the revision desire and drive, then make sure you come back here and we'll give you the best tips to do so. But we will see you next week. Bye. There's the awkward wave. And cut.